Recently, I got a chance to spend some time with the Blazar 1.5 times anamorphic lenses, the Viper Blue Flare Limited Edition series. Now, the Vipers are basically the manual focus versions, only available in PL mount. They're basically the same as the Talon lenses, which were autofocus, but in PL mount and more geared towards the cinema style lenses. Now, what's exciting about this set is these come in the limited edition blue flare. Now, Blazar a while back kind of discontinued their blue and amber coatings in favor of neutral coatings, which YouTube seems to be favoring these days. For me, as someone who's a movie aficionado, I consider myself a film buff. I grew up watching movies. I want images that look like my favorite movies and my favorite TV shows. And growing up with things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Die Hard, countless other movies, they all have that anamorphic look, which includes the blue flare, the blue horizontal streak. Recently, it's kind of been the trend to say on YouTube that neutral is better because blue can look sci-fi, or maybe just people got burned out of it over the last couple of years. And I get that, but if you go back and look through just basically all the movies that were made in the 20th century with anamorphic lenses, most of them had blue flare coating. The neutral flare or amber flare that you would see in movies were usually the exception, not the rule. Those were less common. Now it's much more common, and I feel that a neutral coating kind of screams modern anamorphic, something that's brand new, which is great if that's what you're going for. Neutral can be very nice too, especially if you're shooting client work, whether it's going to be a wedding or some sort of commercial where you think a blue streak might be objectionable, then you might want to choose neutral flares. But for me, if I want something that looks anamorphic, classic anamorphic, like classic films, then it's got to be blue. End of rant. Now, I got to shoot with these lenses on a variety of projects, including a recent music video that I did for Stephanie Grace. It was a pleasure using these lenses, and I liked a lot of things about them. First of all was the size and the weight. These lenses are very small and they weigh, feels like next to nothing. Next, I would say the lenses are very fast. Probably faster than it seems. They seem to let in a lot of light. They seem very versatile in a wide variety of lighting situations. The other thing I liked about these lenses was the barrel distortion. You don't see that on a lot of anamorphic lenses. Some of them have very little distortion, or the opposite, the pin cushion type of distortion where the sides kind of cave in. But I found this really, really nice on the 35 millimeter. The 35 millimeter, when you get really close to your subject, the world around them just looks so huge, and the barrel distortion kind of just gives a little bit of a surreal quality. It's very, very nice. I liked all of the focal lengths, and I felt all of them were extremely useful. Now let's get to the good part, the blue flares. The cool thing about this is you are getting the horizontal blue streak, and you're getting some secondary flare things. We're getting a kind of a starburst kind of effect right around the light source. We're getting a secondary flare, which is usually has a greenish tint to it. And we're also getting very hints of this rainbow flare. So there's lots of character in these flares. And I do think they look different than other anamorphic flares that I've seen on larger lenses. But there again, we're talking about different weights, different sizes, different optics. The flares, the character is probably not going to match those kinds of lenses because the optics are frankly smaller and they're different. With everything I just mentioned, these flares look phenomenal. And we were able to get some really cool effects. If I had one criticism, I would say this kind of goes for most anamorphic lenses that I think that are being made now, seem to be a little too controlled, in my opinion. For me, when I'm watching older films, it seems like those Panavision and older anamorphic lenses tended to flare a little bit easier, and those DPs back then would control that with the use of a matte box. And they knew it, but you would see, a side light come in, and all of a sudden there would be a flare appear. With newer anamorphics, I feel like they're trying to get them more and more controlled. So you only get the flare unless a direct light is hitting the lens, which I think is great for some people. But if you're really wanting some of that streaky goodness, I think they should be a little more sensitive. That's just my personal preference. You may feel differently. It's my personal opinion that I think that if you're going for anamorphic, then you should be going for all the things that make them special. Otherwise, why not just shoot spherical, right? Anamorphic lenses typically have soft fall off on the edges, but a center sharpness. They typically have oval bokeh. They typically have streaky flares, blue streaks, usually the norm. And there is usually some sort of distortion. And occasionally there's even some of this, what they call the swimming effect, where you see the image kind of move and warp and distort as it gets closer to the edge of the frame. Now, we see that on older movies. We see that on older lenses. I think it's part of the coolness of it. But I think what's happening with modern anamorphics is I think filmmakers are shaping something new so they can use this technology but still get kind of a more of a refined look. And I think these sit somewhere in between there. They have a lot of the classic anamorphic character. They have great bokeh, great center sharpness with some fall off. There's a little bit of chromatic aberration, but not enough for me to really object to. Focus breathing was very controlled. This felt like the lenses performed for their size, their weight, and their price just beautifully. As a disclaimer, I should say that Blazar is not compensating me for this video. I am just giving my unbiased review opinion of these. I think they're great lenses. I do tend to gravitate some things, especially flares and bokeh, towards the Great Joy lenses, which were also manufactured by Blazar. I also own those, and there's a lot of things that I like about those better. And maybe down the road I'll do a comparison between the two so we can see them side by side. But overall, I like the flares on the Great Joy better. I like the bokeh better, but there are things about the Viper I like better too. I like the sharpness, I like the barrel distortion, I like how fast they were, and of course the size and the weight. The size and the weight is a big deal. We're talking about lenses that weigh about almost 3 pounds and are over twice the size of these lenses. So when you look at where Blazar came with the Great Joy lenses as their first release to this, they've definitely refined a lot of things, and they made a very versatile set of lenses that's going to be great for a lot of people. I hope this review has been helpful, and I hope to get some more of these kind of videos out in the future. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next one.